Okay, this is what I was looking at first, and looking at how the sectors were doing. And then I used this little gem, ETF.com, to look at the sectors, like what's in it. So for instance, with XLV, something I want to point out to you guys, I know we're starting off a little different today. Happy Saturday, by the way. I think I said that already. Anyway, XLV is on my radar for a couple of things. First of all, one of our Discord members, Kayla, and also someone who has been on the morning show with me, if you listen to the morning show, mentioned Johnson & Johnson. And one thing I want you guys to look at with Johnson & Johnson is take a look at September 15th, 210 calls and puts. The open interest and volume on those are insane. The difference in price between the two is also a little something that you want to keep an eye on. But somebody knows something, because there's absolutely no way that there's this much interest into these calls and or puts. So they could be selling both. Now granted, if you're selling those puts, then you think that that price is going to get above 210. They could also be doing a spread, but it's something I just want you guys to keep in mind. And then also, not sure if you've watched the news, but you know that there's a new COVID strain coming out this winter. You also know kids are back in school. You also know that people have been outside all year long. So it's healthcare. Let's keep an eye on healthcare, okay? Take a look at Johnson & Johnson and KVUE, KVUE. I'll bring it up here. KVUE. So KVUE is Johnson & Johnson's spin-off company that they are doing right now, which is why I think a lot of people have interest. And if you look at this, it's a bear flag here. Now, it sort of broke through and came back in, but if you look at KVUE versus J&J, they're like complete opposites there. Now, this is somewhat of a bull flag that it broke down from, but it may possibly recover. So this is a strong support for it. But anyway, XLV is actually on my list, and here are the top companies in XLV. So if Johnson & Johnson makes a move, it may push XLV to the upside, okay? All right, so let us look at this calendar for this week, because we have Jackson Hole this week. If you're not sure what Jackson Hole is, it's basically an economic data conference where Powell will be testifying. Will that move the markets much? We're not sure, but something again that we're going to be aware of. So Tuesday, Feds are starting to be outside as well. So just imagine that the Feds are going to be speaking, and then there's also data next week. So we may have a pretty crazy kind of week again, like we haven't had that already. Y'all, I'm over here looking at the mic like y'all can see me. Anyway, so you got Barkin speaking early on Tuesday, and then in the afternoon you got two more Feds speaking. It's a lot going on there. Wednesday, we have PMI. Where is it? Right there. So Wednesday is PMI, and then, all this other oil and consumer confidence. No, that's EA. But then Thursday is what starts Jackson Hole. Yeah, Thursday the 24th, we start Jackson Hole. You also have this durable goods, and of course jobless claims like we have every week. I don't think there's anything on Friday. Oh, Michigan consumer sentiment. And then Powell speaks at 10:05. So, Friday could possibly be choppy, like the last couple of Fridays. Honestly, I think the last several Fridays have been choppy. Once in a while, we've had a good trend day on Friday, but for the most part, it's choppy. Because this may introduce some volatility into the market, we may not chop. So, if you learn to play with just volatility, basically nothing's happening on Monday, so you wouldn't trade Monday, then you would trade Tuesday through Friday, because there's enough data that should bring some volatility into the market. Okay, so that's what we have coming up economic wise. So let's get to our normal stuff, okay? I know I wasn't here last week, and things are still crazy on my end, but what I have been doing to make up for things being crazy is I've been really, really focused. The only things I've really been trading have been SPY, Qs, IWM, and then I've been having some swings. So like, I know I've told y'all about Tesla puts. I've been swinging that. I did have a BA swing that I had. I swung some IWM because now I'm more busy where I'm not able to day trade, so I swing a lot more. But the key with that is just buying time. You guys just buy yourself time, and it's hard to miss that. All right, so we knew that the VIX was getting really, really low, right? We knew that even though we did have a little bit more room to go, we were waiting for this right here. Okay, I want to start before we even get into the charts. I want to start by saying I have been saying for weeks, probably months, that the bulls are in control. We are bullish on these charts. They are continuing to buy the dip, and we will stay large picture bullish until the charts show us otherwise. The charts are now starting to show us otherwise. In my opinion, they started in August, and I told you guys a couple of weeks ago about that. Told you about the head and shoulder that I'm getting ready to show you, and then we broke through. So if you've been following me for a while, and if you listened, congratulations, because you were ready for this turn in the market. You played what the charts gave you, instead of holding a bias. Okay, so congratulations on that. All right, so anyway, looking at the VIX, we are moving up a little bit. Now we have hit somewhat of a resistance. Notice that these EMAs are starting to turn to the upside. However, the VIX has hit the 200. Now look at this. The VIX has not hit the 200 since March. Okay, and tried a couple times and couldn't get there. Now on this daily chart, let me look on the weekly. The daily and the weekly, you have a inverted head and shoulders. You got a shoulder here, a head, and this is the entire shoulder area that will be supported above 1550. So we're looking back on the daily. We know that this rejected here, so we may get a 2 up, 2 down, which honestly I'm expecting that we're going to be bullish Monday. And then we possibly will fall the rest of the week, kind of like what we did before. If you think that it may repeat the same pattern. So Friday and Monday in the VIX were red, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it boomed. So we know that it boomed. We know that this is a strong resistance. I mean, it hasn't been here in a while. So we expect for it to reject here. So we have our Friday, we may have our Monday that come down, and then it may come back up. It may have to test this a couple times before it breaks through, because we know that the 200 is a very strong resistance. It could also gap above it, but things we want to keep in mind. Also want to keep in mind that this could be a head and this could be a shoulder. So it could go either way, especially since we know that this is a hard resistance. We just have to see basically what the charts tell us, okay? So like I said, shorter term, you got a shoulder here, possibly a head here, where this could come down. We may see some green in the markets. Longer term, you see this entire shoulder, head, and then this is an entire shoulder area, the same shoulder area right here. So it will be supported again above 1550, and it needs to break through that 200. If it breaks through the 200, then this inverted head and shoulders will boom to the upside. All right, looking at the dollar is also breaking above. It's trying to trigger above on the month. It needs to break that 103.62, 104 area. If it does, it has a nice little rev strat here where it may come up to 104.68. All right, we see that it bounced here and it's kind of stuck, honestly. This is still ranging, in my opinion. But sometimes the rev strats give powerful moves if it can actually boom. Maybe Powell will do something this week to make it move. Then we might actually see some movement there. Keep in mind also, though, that it has a PMG. Is this a 2, 3, 4? Yeah, it does have a PMG on the week. So it could, just like it did here, it could come back down. Every time it's touched this 30, just my yellow line, it is rejected. So interesting to see what this does here. Looking at it on the 200, it is at the 200. So is it going to do this again? See how it broke above, gave us a head and shoulder, and then died. And then died. So interesting to see if this can stay supported above and then actually boom, or if it's going to repeat here and chop and then die. So just keep an eye on that. Looking at the NASDAQ, we haven't looked at these things on a monthly, y'all. So I'm trying to get through them. We may take a little bit longer today, but we do need to look at these really quickly. So the NASDAQ has triggered the monthly down. You're going to see this pattern a lot on some of these indices. A lot of them have basically triggered the monthly down, and they either are sitting right at the trigger or they've already triggered it. So NASDAQ has been triggered it under 14,933, and so we're still looking for 14,237 for a monthly target. So obviously it could take another couple of weeks because we do have 2 more weeks of month. So we may need some corrective activity because we've had 3 red weeks in a row. So, we are actually still in this weekly shoulder area. So it could possibly even correct all the way back up to 15,320. And we would still be in the weekly shoulder area. One thing I want y'all to notice, these EMAs are starting to turn down. Okay? The MACD is crossing right here if you use that. If it's crossing on the weekly, it's a really strong signal. Now, a couple times it's crossed before and then crossed right back and then kind of stayed a little and then crossed right back up. But it's crossing down. Okay? Also, we know that we have hit some highs. We know that we need some correction. So this is what I have seen the last few weeks, is that we went from buy the dip mode to short the rip mode. Okay, and y'all remember what bear markets are like. You may have some really strong rips and then they get shorted down. This is what I'm seeing. You know how to see that? You start seeing lower highs on your charts. Okay, you look at the daily. If you look at the rips that are happening, they're still lower each time. Rip, lower. Rip, lower. Rip, lower. Rip, lower. And now we're crossing under these. And on the daily, the 8 has crossed both the 30 and this 50. All right, so I was talking in the Discord and telling everybody, and I even told y'all a couple of weeks ago, this was your head and here's your shoulder area. So we've been kind of chopping down in the shoulder area, but we just barely broke through it. So the head and shoulders did play out. And then we kind of printed this green bar. It's not a hammer or anything like that, but we're far away from the EMAs. You know how we use them. So we can expect, like I was telling you with the VIX, if we have a red Friday and a red Monday on the VIX, we may see some green in the market on Monday at least. So, and I would expect that because a lot of these things are away from the EMAs and they need to come back up and possibly just retest them before they get shorted back down again. I am mostly bearish for the moment, but at the same time, I do still know we do still have room to the upside, but we have ran so much without much corrective activity. So I am definitely expecting some corrective activity, but I would not be surprised if we started moving back to the upside. I honestly think that we're going to correct down here to this 200. So you know how it's been a while, y'all, since I've been talking about gaps, right? Because we've gone so much to the upside, we haven't really focused on gaps or filling gaps, right? Well, except for these, we did kind of fill those, but we do have this one gap here that's left, this 13,657, which is right at the 200. That's going to be my next target for the NASDAQ, okay? It's filling that gap. The Dow. All right, so the Dow, y'all, this thing is it's the king of range. I'm now going to, between the Dow and the dollar, those are the two things that range the most, okay? Looking at it on the month, this is a range. This is a range. This is a range. So you ranged here forever. You finally broke out, but when you broke up, you got into this range right here. So it's not a lot going on. If you know how to play it, this is good because doing this on futures actually works really well. However, one thing I want y'all to notice is the Dow has triggered the outside month. And so, yes, it is still possible for this to make it. 337.17 is going to be your target there, okay? And then looking at it on the daily, it looks just like the NASDAQ. We had our green Monday, fell the rest of the week, Friday, gapped down and recovered. Far away from the EMAs, so still expecting possibly a 2 down, 2 up reversal just to correct up to this EMAs. But the 8 is about to cross this 30. And I'm expecting to at least correct down here to this 337.29. That's going to be a strong support right there, is this 200. It hasn't touched this 200 since it gapped above it. Okay, so it may just want to come back down and test it again. Now, when these things start breaking the 200 and staying under, that's when we're going to get bearish again. And remember, I've told y'all that, hopefully, you've been around for a while, but I've told y'all that for at least a year. That 200 is our large picture signal as far as if we are bullish or bearish. Right now, most things are still above it. So we are considering this corrective activity, and we still expect to go back to the upside unless they cross below the 200. Then we're bearish, large picture bearish, and we will expect some blood in the market. And to be honest, I think that September is going to be pretty bloody. So I would like to go on record with that right now. I really do think that September is going to really show us some real red in the markets. Okay, so a lot of things are doing, like, you can even look at this as this is a whole head, and this may be a shoulder area. So it could chop in this shoulder area until September, and then so keep that in mind. All right, I know I'm talking, y'all. Okay. All right, small caps. IWM. Oh, let me take this off. Sorry. Okay, IWM is still inside month, so it's not doing a whole lot. However, it is red. So if you can see, we had the same turn. You got this 3 red weeks here. And then when you look at it on the daily, it looks exactly the same. Green Monday, fell the rest of the week. Friday, gap down and recover. The difference here, IWM broke the 200. Okay, so it broke the 200, it came back up, and it closed right at it. So this is going to be one of my top watches for next week, simply because the 8 has crossed through all of these, and it broke through the 200. So this is going to be a level it may possibly fight at. So I'm going to be watching to see if it makes this level resistance, or if it makes it a support and it can move back up, or if it starts to fall down. We do have a gap here to the downside if it wants to keep going. And then we could correct at least up to these EMAs if it goes. But another thing I want you to notice, there's your head. This is your shoulder. Now it kind of fell through the shoulder area, but it could definitely still come all the way back up to retest this 189, 190, and chop right there before it decides to break through for September if it does something like that, or break back up to the upside. All right, so watch IWM small caps, y'all. Excuse me. All right, the Qs is going to look just like NASDAQ. Basically, we have triggered the 2 up, 2 down on the monthly. When we look at Apple and Microsoft, you'll see that has happened. We have plenty of room to go down. There's so much room to fall here. And I do want y'all to remember that. Lots of room. Same thing on the weekly. The MACD is crossing. You got this head here, and we could make a little shoulder area. When you look at it on the daily, same exact thing. This 8 has crossed below our 30 and our 50. So I am, again, short-term bearish, at least until we hit this 333. So I think we can pull back to 333. That may not happen until our bloody September. But just remember, here's your head. This is the shoulder area. So We barely broke through it, but we can definitely come back up and correct and then chop right here before we come down to that. But that's going to be a strong support. And again, I'm still large picture bullish until we break below this 200. I am short-term bearish though, because the charts are telling me that the bears are in control. Hopefully that made sense. If it doesn't, feel free to ask me some questions in the comments, y'all. All right. So I was also talking about in the Discord how SPY broke the two, triggered the two up, two down on the month. However, it's now fighting at this level. That 437 is going to be pretty critical, basically. So needing to break that is what we're going to need to see for us to see more downside. Then my levels are going to be 428, and then 418-ish is the monthly target. All right, so, Kiki and I were also talking about that. You got your head on the week. You got the 8 about to cross below this 50. You got the MACD about to cross. You got the fact that we basically have been green without much correction. We had some correction, but not much. So it's about time. Chart looks the same here. 8 has crossed below. And we've had those red days and some corrective activity. So thinking we can at least come back up and retest 440, 441. We know that 440 was pretty much a magnet. Also, if you look over here, look at this area. This is an area that we've either gapped down from or gapped up from. Then look, gap down, gap up, gap up. This is like an area that just needs to be chopped out. When I looked at, ironed out. When I look back, what is that, 440? Yeah, this is a pretty choppy area that it just seems to blow past. So it honestly may want to chop around here a little bit. So it may come back up to this 440, and 440 may be a magnet for a while. Kind of like when you were looking here, 444 and 451 were a magnet until it finally broke through. And then here, 443 was like a really strong support, and it finally broke through. So now I think it may come back up and retest that, iron this out, shoulder this out, because, we were talking here, this was the shoulder, this was the head, this is the shoulder. I warned everybody about, we went through. Larger picture, this whole thing could be a head, this could be your shoulder. So again, we could definitely come back up and retest 440, maybe even 445. Before continuing to go lower. But I do want to point out, yes, I think we're going to go lower. We do have this little teeny gap here at 423 to pay attention to, but my strong support is going to be 420. So I think that 420 is, we're definitely, that's where we're headed. From there, we could go back up to see the top of this Broadener formation, but we do, at least if you look at this like this, like how it went from here to here, coming down to 420 is really correcting only about half of this move. Watch, I'm gonna flip it for y'all real quick so y'all can see how that works. And yes, I use fibs because Sarah taught me that. Okay, she taught me that because that was the way to use it if the outside bar indicator wasn't working. You're understanding that it's going 50% of the move, right? All right, so if we go from our move from March 10th, which was our last like corrective activity low, and where we boomed up, and y'all, I guessed that when I looked, but you can see now when I actually put the fibs up there, it's exactly at 420. So coming down to 420 would give us half of this entire move. Now, how we know outside bars, if it breaks through that, if it breaks through this 420 and it cannot hold, we are definitely bearish, okay? Because first of all, it's broken through the 200. Second of all, based on outside rules, we would expect that it's going to come all the way down here. Okay, that's a stretch though. I'm not there yet. I'm really just right now looking for this 420. All right, I know I was there for a while. I'll be trying to keep these short, y'all, but I get to talking and explaining and stuff. All right, so Apple. Apple had earnings and just said it's not going to save the market. It has triggered the monthly, but it has already hit its target. So it's not really anything going on there. It's going to look just exactly like the Qs, where it's just been melting down. 8 cross below both of these, and we're closer to the 200 here than anything else. This is going to be my next target, is for Apple to fill this gap where it gapped up at. So about 167 is what we're looking for, which will be a little bit below this 200, but it may do like what we just saw with IWM, where it washes below and then comes back up. But at least I'm looking for them to try to possibly fill the gap. We do also have a gap to the upside though, but I want y'all to notice the 8 crossed the 30 and the 50, and then now the 30 is starting to cross below the 50. One thing we know, when these start turning down, we start getting bearish, but not until we break below the 200. That's when we stay in bear mode. We stay. Okay. All right. So yeah, looking at that, we're probably expecting some corrective activity. Can come back up and retest this 177.56 to the upside. It may even come up here to this 183. Things we want to keep in mind, and the 2 gaps that we have. Okay. Microsoft, same deal. Triggered the monthly, hit its target. Yes, there's still room to go. Okay. You almost got a PMG here and on Apple, I think. Yep. So, we just one red bar. There are, not to say it's going to go all the way down there, but there is room. When I was saying 420, that's about right here. 380 was down here. That's a lot, I think. But, sorry, y'all, lost my train of thought. We do have these that we can easily take out. I don't think this has a gap. Oh, we do. 281.76. However, that is way below the 200. So I'm going to give it this 300 first. But y'all, I know I've taught y'all long enough. Y'all see this, right? If y'all following me and you look at this right here and you're bullish, what am I missing? Okay. You got your head here. You got your shoulder. It's kind of still in the shoulder area. It really came down and filled this gap. So if anything, I would be looking for some corrective activity back up to these EMAs before it dropped again. But then we do have our targets to the downside. Okay. Tessie, did y'all listen? Did y'all listen about Tesla? Because I told y'all about this Tesla evening star on the month. And we were looking for that 2 up, 2 down. And while a lot of people were bullish on Tesla, I kind of knew that Tesla was ready to come down. Now, if Tesla still goes, 200 is the target. However, if you look at it on the monthly, it's sitting right at a strong support. And it's had 3 red weeks in a row. So again, it could have some corrective activity. When I look at it on the daily, it broke the 200. Okay. However, if you look at it on the daily, the same way we saw this evening star on, or somewhat evening star on the monthly chart, it's kind of sort of a morning star here, pattern here on the chart. So looking at it, again, that's not really bullish. You do have room to go to the downside. Again, like I said, it can get to that 200, which is about what, right here. It's already broken below the 200. So my next target, my upside target, if it does this 2 up, 2 down, 2 up, and this morning star does play out, it could 223, but then we could at least come to this 227 and then possibly 231 to retest this. So it's at a key level. It's at this 200. Got to kind of see what it does. Is it going to reject when it comes back up here? Or is it going to push through and find support there? Is it going to push through TTO and then come back right on back down? That monthly saying that we still have room to go to the downside. But however, we have fallen a lot. We can just as easily correct. So things you want to keep in mind. All right. Meta kind of looks like that. I know we haven't talked about that, but I wrote it up. Did not write it down. A lot of these charts look like this on the daily though, right? All right, let's look at some sectors. XLY on the monthly has triggered, so you still have some room there. Looking at, I'm just going to do monthly and daily this time, y'all, because a lot of the weekly ones just look red. So, but you seeing the same thing right here, where we may see some corrective activity. I want y'all to target these 200s to the downside. That's what I want y'all to look at. If you're looking to the upside, you're going to target at least corrective activity back to these EMAs, because whenever it gaps down away from them, it always comes back. Okay, remember that. We gap up, we always come back to the EMAs somehow. You gap down, nope. Gapped up, nope. You came back down. So see, look right here. It gapped down, right? Came back up to this EMA, but then it boomed above this one and said, nope, I got to come back down and sit down for a second. All right. So remember, that will be your up and down. XLK technology has hit the target basically here. So, you know, we do still have more downside, but at the same time, because we've hit our target, we can definitely see some more bullish activity. All right, we have not hit our 200 yet. Again, a lot of these look the same. So, you know, you do still have room to the downside. You got your gap here, but you could just as easily correct up to these EMAs. All right, XLF is sitting at its 200. So that's one of those, it's kind of like, what were we just looking at? That's sitting at the two, I think it was Tesla. Kind of have to see how it acts right here. And IWM. So I would put, I think do I have these on my, let me put that right there. XLF and IWM, I'm putting on the weekly list that I give y'all, because I like where they are. So I'm going to watch them. And remember, you guys, when I'm giving y'all a weekly list, y'all got to give time for some of these plays, okay? Because most often I am looking at them on a weekly time frame. So you know, you want to give time for these things to play out or not. All right, so XLF I will be watching because it's right here, and I want to see what it does with that. It's still inside month, and it can still trigger the monthly to the downside. So that's something you're going to want to look for, that 33.25. So you want to see if it wants to still go. You know, it might do something like an H. It could H up like here, or do some corrective activity and then drop. And then if it triggers that monthly, then you want to be in there. So you want to keep your eyes on that for that. XLC Communications, also another one that has not triggered the monthly yet, but it's close. So 64.50 is what you're going to be looking for there. And that's something like Meta, I believe, is one of the XLC plays. But again, same thing. You're probably going to get some corrective activity to the upside, or even just an inside day. That's another thing I didn't mention. I'm thinking more corrective activity, though, because last week on Monday we were bullish. That's exactly what we did. Friday we chopped. Monday we were bullish up to the EMAs, and then the rest of the week we fell. Okay, well, Friday we did kind of chop, but was green. Monday we can correct to here or to here, and then we could fall the rest of the week. So our data may change that, but we would just have to see. XLE has been holding up pretty strong. Nothing there on the monthly. On the weekly, because this is on the list, you got a red inside hammer. So interesting to see if this can break out of this range and move to the upside. Okay, you kind of have an actionable signal here and somewhat of a bull flag. It's somewhat of a bull flag here. So excuse me, I'm watching my favorite energy stock for sure. XLU, Strat, triggered and hit. XLU is under the 200, so that is one of the stocks that is in bearish mode and has pretty much stayed in bearish mode. And again, if y'all see how you can use the 200 as a rejection point. So this one actually has TTO'd. So let me look at this on the week. Oh no. Yeah, well, we knew it TTO'd, but it's still kind of stuck in a range there. So XLI triggered the outside month, and it's pretty close to it, but you know, that's kind of where it's going if it has any more room to drop. And then again, you can again target these 200s, y'all. For more downside, target the 200. All these are starting to look so similar. Target the EMAs to the upside, and of course your strat target, y'all. If we have upside movement, but a lot of them look the same. XLV is like ill. This is ill. This is just like this. This is chop. It's been chopping for 2 years. For 2 years. But again, remember what I told you about Johnson & Johnson, healthcare, that type of stuff. If you think about it in 2020, when all that COVID stuff happened, this is what happened. Okay? After it had ranged for a while, COVID happened and it started booming. But then once COVID got a handle on it, it's just been sideways ever since. But at the same time, this is kind of like a gigantic bull flag almost, or inverted head and shoulders. You got your head here and it's sitting in the shoulder area. So, you know, if something happens with, I don't know, Johnson & Johnson or Pfizer comes out with a different COVID thingy or whatever, it may move. So we also know that the biggest bases usually lead to the biggest breakout. So we shall see. XLP kind of looks exactly the same. You got an inverted head and shoulders, but it's in a range. It's triggered the monthly down, so it still does have room to go. But however, it's in a range that I really wouldn't want to mess with. It has broken below its 200. And then it printed this green candle where it may come back up and test and then die again. But this is looking somewhat bearish to me. It's not able to really hold above this 200. XLRE is real estate that's definitely almost hit its target. So it's no really actionable signal there. It's bearish though because we are under the 200. You can see the difference in these versus the ones that are actually bullish, right? All right, XLB not doing anything on the month. The week looks like everything else, and so does the day, except that XLB is sitting on its 200. So that's another one you may want to watch and see how it reacts here. You got your head here, so this may build a shoulder before it falls. Or this may find support here, because last couple times it hit here. It kind of boomed. It didn't put a hammer this time, but it did close above it. So it can at least correct upwards to these EMAs at the very least. XLP oil and gas. Y'all see this downtrend that I had drawn on a long time ago? It's kind of trying to break above it. It looks like. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so we broke above. And looks like we've consolidated like around it or above it. So that's actually good. I'm going to leave this here just because I like to see whether or not it fakes out. This could certainly be a bull trap where they say, oh yeah, we broke out. Nope, breaks back to low. So, oh yeah, well, I was so tired. Watching this, y'all. XRT, not really doing much. Looking at it on the daily, it is also right at its 200. So if this can break to the upside, we might have some upside move, but this 200 is pretty much a key level for a lot of these that are sitting there. Jets. So transportation time is pretty much over. This summer is done for a lot of people. The kids are back in school. So we had our nice little run. This actually looks like an evening star on the month that I missed, and we are now rejecting. So there is more room to the downside there, and it has broken below the 200. So does it stay? You got you ahead here. Some tires, kind of ugly shoulder, but it's a shoulder nonetheless. So yeah, that may be done for the year. Lithium. This is a bear flag, like just lower highs. This is just telling me like it's a whole downtrend that this has been in since for the last 2 years, almost, honestly, on the monthly. So it looks like the bears really have been in control and short the rip for the longest, and it's still room to go down. Oh, did I unplug my? I don't know how that happened, y'all, but anyway, yeah, there's still room for this to go to the downside. We know, like how we said, we're in short the rip, though. You knew before I got to the daily, y'all knew that, right? Y'all knew that when I got to the daily that you was going to see it was under the 200, right? I know y'all listening to me. Let me know in the comments. Y'all love to hear, things that y'all learning and stuff like that. But hopefully you are learning, even though I am Strat. I am Strat plus patterns. And my patterns include the ones that I talk about and the EMAs. All right, that's just what I use. And rest in peace, Rob. He said, if it works for you, then do it. And it's worked for me. So that's what I've done. Lit has a lot of gaps here, though. So not necessarily one that I would play, but you can just still see it's in a downtrend. SOXL, hard rejection here. And it took out a couple of the monthly targets. So, and we're sitting right at the 200. I am not too bearish on chips because these are chips. Like, I'm not sure how much. I don't think that there would be a whole lot of bearish activity, especially with all of the news on chips. However, keep in mind that they have ran a lot. Nvidia does have earnings this week, so that could definitely push. I mean, I don't see them missing earnings. That could definitely push a lot of things. So we will keep that in mind. Sorry, y'all. If it breaks this 200, though, we do still have a gap to the downside. It can get down to the 1619. I promise y'all, if it gets down there, I'm probably going to start buying more shares there. But yeah, or you can honestly even place a limit order there. Like if it does do an H, I would probably place like a limit order and buy some there. And then maybe, I don't know if it's going to come down this far, but yeah, definitely at that 16. All right, back to the IYT. Almost triggering the 2 down on the monthly. So it's Randy Jackson. No, that's not a Randy Jackson because that's a 2 up, 2 down. It's just a regular 2 up, 2 down. But you do have room for this to go. My first target would be this 240, 235, 223 if it wants all of that. You got your head forming here on transportation. This may, your like Uber, your eBay, things like that, or just search IYT on that ETF website I gave you at the beginning of the video. But yeah, you got your head and shoulders here. A lot of this looks the same as everything else. We're still above the 200, but we still can drop all the way down there. All right. China is in the toilet and still has been in the toilet. Like it's in a downtrend. It triggered the rev strat on the month and it hit the target. It can still go to the downside. So, but at the same time, it's kind of been ranging. If you look at it, it's been ranging. It did kind of break out and then break down, but it's still ranging. So, and then y'all know what y'all gonna see when you get to this daily, right? You already knew it. The 200 was way up there. Any corrective activity, that would be our target. But you can see the last couple times it's tried to get there. It's having a hard time. Like it TTOs people and then it comes right back down. Like your favorite Baidu or Baba is going to look like that. Oh, wow, Baidu. And yeah, this is the only thing with China is that these gaps, to me, it makes it a little bit harder to play when you have gaps like that. But the best thing to do with that and how I played Baba earlier this year is to buy time. So if you know for sure we've broken below this 200, and say you wanted to get in here for the ride down to fill this gap, I would give it a couple of weeks so that, the gaps that happen don't really kill you. Like say from here, if it decided to gap up and fill that gap, it won't kill you to wait for it to fall again. because you have time. Alrighty. So we did spider sectors. I think that, oh, we already went through, we're in the middle of a 2-week setup. Did I not do the 2 weeks last week? I must not have done the 2 weeks last week since I didn't do a video. But these are the ones that I had. So my apologies, y'all. I should have at least posted the list or something. Things have been crazy, and it's gonna be crazy for another month though. XLV. This has not triggered yet, but we just talked about XLV, and we had this inside hammer. Now it's come back in the range, but it's still inside. So this week it may or may not do something. But remember how we talked about it ranging? If it doesn't this week, then then by next week we'll have this double inside 2 week, or basically inside month. Yep, to try to see where it decides it wants to go. XLC already went down. It's a whole lot of room to go there. XLF again already went down. We talked about XLF. Google is barely triggering, but I swear to God, Google just wants to hold this 127. It's like, I mean, it was a strong resistance first, so we're trying to see it. But if it passes through this 127, looking for 124 and then 119 possible on Google, which would possibly bring down the indices. MS has already triggered. So these were the 2 week setups I had. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm so sleepy. I may take me a nap today. All right. Our outside months. You got Nike. It's really only about $1 left in that. Crowd. Got 140-ish, 139.37 you're going to aim for. Affirm. 1281 is the target on that one. Neo. For 949, it's about $1. Same thing with DraftKings. Disney, boy, that thing cannot. I just knew Disney would recover from this, but this bear flag is saying this is actually probably about to go further to that 79.63. Honestly, let me look at Disney on a quarter. Oh, it triggered the quarter, you guys. Oh, that's not an actionable signal, but 85 and then possibly 78 for Disney. PDD, China. So remember how I was telling you about China and how it gaps. This would be an ideal situation because you got an outside bar possible. So 67.55, but I would give it to the end of the month. So I would give it 2 weeks, maybe even 3 for some padding, maybe even 4 to get to this 67.55. Don't play it if you can't afford to go that far out. That's something I honestly had to learn. I'm not saying that condescendingly. I'm literally saying it. If it's too expensive, don't play it if you can't buy time. All right. And all these lines. Okay, I didn't. Not much room on that either, but you do have a couple more dollars for Starbucks to go. And then Starbucks is really kind of in the shoulder area. This may be ready to die. It's been struggling though, but that 3-2 down on the quarter is still possible under 96.92. All right, so that's your outside month. Let us look at our weekly list, and then we will be done. Oh, before we get to the weekly list, let's just talk about these quarter triggers really quickly. HD, we're still looking to see what this is going to do. It's now ranging, but it's kind of making a bull flag a little bit. It's just been kind of sideways here. There's no actionable signal here unless you're going to do this 2 up, 2 down, which is not much room there. 323.36. And then you would just have to see what it does from there. Again, outside 2 weeks, so it definitely still could at least come to this 323. COP is another one. This had, oh, I must have missed this. Nice inside week. But this is kind of like ZOM, which y'all will see in a minute, which is the inside week. So watch energy next week, because that inside and somewhat hammer could definitely do a push to the upside. All right, so some of our monthly triggers. Snow is basically hit. So if y'all caught that, good job. I'm going to take this off now. I didn't mean to have that up there. CRM. So we had a rev strat on the month, and we still do have a little bit more room if it does still want to go to the downside. There is no actionable signal here though on the weekly, and it did bounce off this 30, so careful with that. But if CRM does continue to the downside, then this is a whole shoulder area. It's the shoulder, this is the head, so it may want to come back up and shoulder some more. But we do have some downside where, if it wants to go, it can go to the downside. AMD also triggered the monthly 212 down, but bounced off this EMAs. UAL, we're just talking about jets. That's one that has triggered to the downside. And then, of course, Tesla. We already talked about Tesla and the room it still has or the corrective activity that it could have. So, inside, remember we were just talking about healthcare and we were talking about J&J, and I was showing you about K-View. J&J has an inside week now. So something you definitely want to keep in mind and keep a watch on, especially with that crazy open interest. But yes, Johnson & Johnson has an inside week, so keep an eye on that. ZOM also inside week with a hammer. So this can break this 112. First of all, 110 is a really strong resistance. Then it will be 112. And if you can break that 112, then we can look for 117.34 as our upside target. All right. So we talked about XLE, the inside hammer. Talked about IWM because it is sitting at the 200. The same thing with XLF, and XLV had an inside week. That's why we were watching that, I believe, right? Yeah. It had to be that inside. I don't necessarily like this inside week, but because of healthcare, we were talking about that. And we were talking about the possible flag and all of that. So we're just going to keep our eyes on it. So one thing before I get out of here, y'all, one thing I want to point out that I've been doing. So remember how I said that I have been very busy. I have been very mobile, so I haven't been able to trade a lot. So what I have done is I have really focused on SPY, QQQ, and IWM. These three things have really helped me focus and pull back on playing too many tickers. Okay. So I will play in these, I don't necessarily play just 0 days. Like for instance, IWM, I actually swung that from Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? Yes, I swung that from Tuesday. So I swung it all the way up until Friday. But it helps me to not be all over the place when I have too many tickers on my list. Like even this is probably the least amount, and this gives me sectors to play with. But also, if you don't have time to watch a whole lot of stocks, you can use these sectors as, plays. But I really just want to point out how you can make probably just as much just playing these or waiting for the actionable signal, waiting for your setup, waiting for your play, and just focusing on those. So if you found yourself all over the place, I would like you to try that. SPY, QQQ, IWM, just those three. None of the rest of these, even though I went through all of them, none of the rest of them, just these three. SPY, you got the top 500. IWM, you have all the small caps. And Qs, you got your tech. Okay? Then, of course, if you want to do a sector or two, like I said, energy, then you can do that. You want to watch these just because you want to keep an eye on what they're doing, because obviously these move these, but not necessarily having to always take a play. Okay? So that's all I have for y'all today. I hope y'all have a wonderful weekend. I'm glad I got it out early this time, and I will see y'all next week.